Story 1. This is something that happened to me in the summer of 2023. I was 16 years old at the time, and the small town that I called home was a quiet place where everyone knew each other. I live in town with my parents. School was out and it was summer vacation. One of my friends lived on the outer part of town. It was about a 25-minute walk each way, and I would often go over there and then walk back late at night, or sometimes I would sleep over. It was just me and Michael because his parents went out for the evening. We had a good time just hanging out in his backyard. We had a fire pit and a pool to go swimming in. I didn't want to go, but as 11 p.m. came, I needed to get going. I knew it was time for me to make my walk back home. I told my parents I would be home before midnight. I told my friend Mark I was going to be headed out. I made that walk many times before, so I wasn't scared at all. On both sides there are cornfields, and I'm sure most of you know what movie that would remind you of. I could see at least a few hundred feet ahead of me on the road. As where we live there are not really any street lights like what are in most towns. All of a sudden, I saw something that looked like a figure in the distance. As I got closer, I could see a person walking towards me. I was thinking my eyes are playing with me. At first, there was nothing really alarming about it. I was curious, though. It was rare for me to see someone else on these roads at night. Mark was an only child, and there were only a few other houses in this area. The person got closer with each step, and I became more and more nervous. I didn't know if I should hide or just continue on. While I was making up my mind, I noticed the figure had disappeared. I thought for a moment that I might have imagined that. I was really sure that I saw someone there. I stopped in my tracks, too scared to walk any further. There was someone hiding up ahead, and I didn't know what that person wanted, and I really didn't want to find out either. There was no way I was walking past that point. I did the only thing I could do, and that was to head back to Mark's house. I turned around and started walking quickly back in the other direction. I looked over my shoulder a few times, and I didn't see anybody behind me. I was starting to think that I had overreacted. Maybe whoever it was just scared of me and decided to hide. I made it back to Mark's house and knocked on the door. He answered and let me inside. I told him what had happened, and he was just as surprised. He was like, "There is never anyone out this late walking around." He asked me, "Are you sure you saw someone?" I was like, "Yes, I saw someone for sure." I decided to call my parents and see if they would come pick me up. If not, I would stay the night. They came to pick me up, and on our way home, we saw a truck that we didn't recognize. We lived in a small community, and there were not any strangers, so it was weird to see that truck. We made it home and didn't worry about it, though the next day that's when I found out. There were several robberies in the area, including Mark's nearest neighbor. I still don't know what they would have done if I'd continued walking down the road that night. Maybe the person hid because he didn't want me to see him, or maybe he was planning to ambush me. I may never know for sure. It could have been a really bad mistake. Story 2. I've tried for decades to forget what happened when I was a young kid. My family moved into a nice house on a dead-end street. It was 4-bedroom and had 3 bathrooms and had wood floors throughout the whole house. We didn't really think too much about why it was for sale and why the owners were selling the house so cheap. It would take a few months before we found out for ourselves what was going on. But it quickly escalated as time went on. At times you felt like you were being watched, and we found the reason for the haunting. My older brother and I were doing our chores when we pulled a large box out of the closet. We noticed that the flooring was loose, so we were not very smart. Instead of telling our parents, we just pulled the wood boards up, revealing something we would never forget. It was an urn. My brother and I got our parents to show them what we found. They decided to remove it from the house, and that was that, or so we thought. But the hauntings didn't stop. We both started to have nightmares where we were alone in the house and had a large blacked-out shadow following us. All I knew was fear when I was in that house. I would wake up all hours of the night to see a dark figure leaning over me. The fear I had, I could not even speak. I would cover my head with my sheets and pray to God to protect me. It worked, but sometimes I would lower the sheet to see the ghostly face staring me in the eyes. It was only inches from me, but my brother and I were seeing faces in the dark, and it came to the point that we stopped doing things on our own. We would often wake each other up to go to the bathroom or go to the kitchen to get something to drink. The final straw happened one day. I was foolishly walking around the house late during a bad rainstorm, and as I walked into my room, lightning flashed at just the right moment, and I saw a figure under my bed, staring at me with a grin that literally ran from ear to ear. I screamed so loud, the terror I felt at the moment I will never ever forget, and it would take days for me to be willing to even go in my room. I ended up taking the bed frame out of my room and started sleeping with the mattresses on the floor. Thankfully, my dad got a promotion at work and we moved to a different state. We were able to leave that house, and whatever evil is there, I hope it stayed there and would not follow us. We went from happy to have such a nice home and wanting nothing more than to leave it all behind. I'll never forget that, and it has left permanent scars that my brother and I will never ever forget. 20 years later, I still have nightmares. God only knows what monsters were living in there with us. This has left my heart pounding with fear from that memory. I hope whoever lives in that house now has peace and is not terrorized. My brother and I made a promise to each other to never ever bring up what happened in that house.